Mindfulness means to see clearly so that you can respond effectively. In this video, I want to share with you how to use mindfulness to become an effective leader. As a leadership coach, I have coached many CXOs and I've seen how hassled they are and how crazy life can be if you are burdened with multiple responsibilities with such dire consequences. When the stress levels are as high as that, it becomes even more important for you to bring in mindfulness as a practice, especially in the way you lead. So before we talk about how to use mindfulness to become effective, let us look at the three elements of mindfulness. The first is intention. Intention helps us to understand why are we thinking about mindfulness? Why are we planning to do whatever we wish to do in this moment? Why is it important? And what is really important? In fact, one of the most beautiful statements that I've ever heard is, the most important thing is to know what is important. As a leader, you need to be clear about what is important and what is not. What is that bigger picture? And when you have that clearly set in your mind, you have a clear intention with which you lead. And that is the first element of being mindful, intention. The second is attention. Now, attention tells us where to focus. When we talk about being in the moment, what is that moment? What does it mean to be in that moment? Now, many would feel that it's difficult to be in the moment. It's difficult to be in the present. Why? Because our mind wanders. Let me share a scientific fact here, just so you feel a little more comfortable about that and be a little more self-forgiving. Science proves that 47% of the times our mind wanders. That does not mean that we cannot practice mindfulness and bring it back to what needs our attention. It's every single time when you catch yourself or your mind wandering and you bring it back to the present is when you have beaten that 47% stat. And it takes practice. And let me tell you this, whatever you practice grows stronger. So you've got to decide what is it that you want to grow and then bring in the practice to help you do that. The third element of mindfulness is attitude. If you bring in the attitude of judgment and lead in a way that you're trying to prove how good a leader you are, and there is that burden of performance or proving that comes along with your style of leadership, that attitude will only get along or bring with it more stress. If you want to let go of stress, you need to correct the attitude with which you lead. Bring in the attitude of service. Bring in the attitude of adding value. Bring in the attitude of doing your best and letting God or the team do the rest. Because no one person is enough to do anything that is required to be done in any organization. And hence we have the whole concept of a team, isn't it? So don't take that burden on yourself and beat yourself down every single time you see that you're not living up to your expectations. The attitude of kindness and curiosity is the most important one to carry when you want to practice mindfulness in the way you lead. So these are the three elements that helps us to understand what mindfulness is. What is the intention with which you bring it in? What is the attention and where that goes? And what is the attitude with which you do what you do? And now let me take you towards how we can become effective leaders using mindfulness. If you're ready, then this is when you put down 3 big A's on a piece of paper. Write down 3 big A's and let me tell you what each one means. And each one of these is going to help you become more effective as a leader while being in the present moment. And hence, mindfulness helps you to get there. Number 1 is authenticity. Authenticity means to be honest without being self-righteous and allowing yourself to be vulnerable at the same time. Too much English? Let me try and simplify this a bit. Authenticity means allowing yourself to be honest and say what you truly mean. But at the same time, you don't get stuck with your rights and wrongs. You are open and flexible to listening to what other people think is their right and their wrong. And that's when you create space for discussions. And that is where growth is possible. And while you do that, allow yourself to be emotionally vulnerable so that you can bring in that connection which establishes trust between two people. As humans, the more we expose our emotional side to each other, as long as we feel safe and create that sense of safety around our environment together, is when real connections happen. To make that happen, as a leader, you take the first move and allow yourself to be emotionally vulnerable to your teams, one step at a time, so they can see the real you. And that's when they come out of the closet, and that's when real teams are formed. The second A is acceptance. Accepting people does not mean dealing with their nuances and their dramas and their weaknesses. In fact, it means accepting and understanding the strengths they bring to the table and certain limitations that they have, just because they're human as you are. And while you have your own weaknesses and limitations, so do they. When you bring in acceptance, you allow yourself to go beyond the limitations that they have and focus on their strengths instead. And that is when you can plan how to bring in those strengths at the right place and the right time to achieve that bigger picture. And the third A is appreciation. I know a lot is talked about this, and we feel that we can't just keep appreciating all the time. It's about kind of, sugarcoating everything that you want to say. Absolutely not. Appreciation is about showing how much you value people. And if people don't feel valued, let me tell you, there are very limited or pretty much no way for us to keep them motivated for a long time. To bring in that intrinsic motivation in your people, you need to make them feel valued, that they matter, that they contribute, they are required. And for doing that, we need to bring in more appreciation. Appreciation is not the same as recognition. So what is the difference? Recognition is recognizing somebody for their performance. When somebody achieves something, we could recognize them for that result. It could be, through a small note that we can send out to them, or an award or a trophy. There are different ways to recognize somebody for what they do. Appreciation, on the other hand, is not dependent on just performance. Appreciation is when you appreciate people and value them for who they are and not what they do. So while recognition is a way to appreciate, there are many other ways and reasons for which you can and you should appreciate your team. When you bring in these three A's is when you know that you are leading mindfully. And with that, you will know which practice to bring in so you grow what you wish to grow in your life and for your team.